Hello and welcome to an Around the Lens review. I'm your host, David J. Murphy, joined, of course, with my co-host, Zach Roberts. Hello, Zach.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm doing great. We've got a spirited discussion I'm sure we're bound to have about the latest documentary on Netflix about photojournalism. You don't see them too often, but when they come out, obviously they make waves because it's usually something pretty interesting. I know we talked about Love Plus War, which is another photojournalist, and now we're talking about Nick Ut, who's the focus of a documentary essentially about the Vietnam girl photograph from the 1970s. And basically, the premise of the documentary is, did Nick Ut actually take the photo of the famous Pulitzer Prize winning Vietnam girl? Napalm girl, I should say, is the correct kind of pretty much area refers to it as. And, this documentary is not something I was going to see, but, this review show, and it forces me to kind of look at these things. But I did hear a lot about it, and we'll talk a little more about why I heard about it because of some things that happened with some folks within our friend circle, specifically the Photo Brigade, but we'll get into that a little bit later. In general, I enjoyed the film. And I know this is gonna probably upset you, Zach, but I didn't. I saw it as a documentary in and of itself, and there were some things about it that I didn't like in terms of how they frame certain things, but in terms of enlightening me towards something I never really thought about or considered, it was interesting. And I think at the end of the day, the documentary raises some important questions about attribution, about respecting, other people's work and what that means for us as sort of citizens of the world and the places we go, and the larger context of rich first world photojournalists coming into poor third world countries and profiting off of that, and what that means in the sort of larger scheme of things. But I don't think the documentary is flawless in any way. I think it has a lot of things I didn't like about it, but in general, I enjoyed it. What do you think, Zach?
Um, let me have the pull line that I have up in my notes. Just tell the fucking story, Jesus fucking Christ. All this is filler, um, because it is pussyfooting its way around just like the lead up to the film. Um, the lead up the like what I felt like 2 year long lead up, which is like, oh, there's this film that exists somewhere. That and then immediately all these stories of people that either saw the film or didn't, saying either, oh, it proves that Nico didn't take this photo, and basically like just slanderous, libelous accusations about him, like whether he's not taking the photo, why he's not talking to the people, and like kind of like all this buildup. And like we walk in with this film and we meet Gary Knight riding a bicycle to his fancy offices. And it centers basically this whole film seems to be self-centered around him in a frustrating way where it's like trying to do what you said. I think that's what it's trying to say that it's trying to do is be like, oh no, well, you have this complicated story where the stringer and the Vietnamese photographers, and we're kind of, doing it, whether or not we're trying to, move this away from kind of the white man's perspective, but it's all fucking centered on Gary, on Gary Knight, and it's all centered on his special little photo club, and of many fantastic photographers. But it is a frustrating film because it teases everything so much, and then it finally gets to a build up somewhere, where it's going to show this evidence, and then it's like gone in a second. And then it's a bunch of things kind of responding to this build up to the film. And so it's just like structurally as a documentary, not even getting into its accusations and whether or not we're going to talk about that later, but just talking about it is just that I'm like, show the fucking evidence, show the evidence. You're making an enormous accusation, like just within the photojournalism world. I can't think of another, like just off the top of my head, just like what's a more like, it's already like, stories about Robert Capa faking photos and kind of, things like that. All these have already been kind of out there, but like, I literally can't think of another photo that is more attached to the photographer in a way that Nick Ut and Napalm Girl photo are kind of attached together. Because it became not just, it became part of his brand of like who he is as a photographer. He's done like a lot of incredible, amazing work since the Vietnam War, obviously, and also the fact that it said so much about. I mean, like this is every school kid learned about napalm as an idea, like an act of war, and how
Yeah.
horrible Vietnam was from this photo. Like there's 1,000 amazing photos. I used to have the Time Life photo books of Vietnam War, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to become a photojournalist. But like this
Wow.
photo is you have to like show the evidence. I mean, also you're all journalists. This isn't just like like a 2 hour long YouTube video that's like laying out things. You have to show the evidence. YouTube videos I've watched that make accusations like this or similar things do a better job than this film did showing the evidence. Whether or not I believe in the evidence, again, we're gonna talk about that later. But oh my God, sorry, that was just my opening tangent about again the filmmaking. Where it's just like we never spend more than 10 seconds talking to anyone. His the wife of was it Carl Robinson, who supposedly is the kind of secondary thing, secondary person that proves within the time period that he was worried about this and he was very concerned about this. We talked to her for I think a total of 35 seconds throughout the entire film. And
Yeah.
she's the one of the main evidence. Like when you're talking about like whether it be a rape accusation or whether you're talking about like that, and one of the ways you prove it is by did she say something back when it happened. I mean, that's during the Kavanaugh hearings and everything like that. That was something that was very important because
Yeah.
they proved journalists went out and talked to friends of Kavanaugh's accusers at the time, and many of them said, yes, she mentioned this back in whatever 1980, whatever time, 90s or whatever, whenever it was. And you need to show evidence of that. And they never did that. They never spend more. It's like, yeah, I did that. Yeah, he said that he was complaining about that was it one line and then we'll move on and more cool shots of Gary Knight moving throughout foreign cities. He's never in the right place at the right time, which is shocking considering this is supposedly this very important thing that he's concerning his entire life with. He's never actually at the first interview, and so it's just a shocking weird piece of filmmaking that I actually wonder to an extent. We just did a roundtable discussion about the Netflix Paramount deal and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like Netflix is kind of famous for taking documentaries and chopping them the hell.
Hmm.
I Ages ago I talked to a filmmaker who did a film about police militarization, and they wanted to basically just slaughter his film, chop it up, and it was a very verite film, like no voiceover, and they would
Mm.
like wanted to add a voiceover, and they wanted to. He said, "No, I'm not doing it." And his film unfortunately never got like it went to like Google Movies, like it
Oh.
was never like it was, and it's one of the best documentaries I've ever seen in my life.
What's it called?
I'll pull up the video. I have to. It has a very generic title.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember what it is. This was like 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And but it's just so I'm like I kind of curious on possibly if that's maybe it, because I mean like you put this many journalists together and researchers and they never show the stuff. It's always these verite scenes of them talking about it, which I'm a documentary filmmaker. I've done those before where it's just like, oh, we've done investigations. Obviously, you don't do investigations with cameras on always. So like, oh, you found something. Oh, I have to show that in the film. Like, so like, yes, I have to kind of play act or tell it to oh, I investigated. I found this whole thing. There's a piece in Vigilantes in my film where I'm on my laptop and I'm showing Greg Palast all this stuff that I found out about this nonprofit that we were investigating, and it's played, but it's like literally it's not like a significant. We then show in the film, we expand on that. It's just this is how we get here, and then we expand on it visually, showing in the documentary visual form. We show the thing. We don't just tell you that this is a thing, which is what this film does. It's all tell and no show.
Interesting. Okay.
I'll take a
Well, we'll
breath
get
there.
we'll get into that a little bit more. I want to debate your opinion there because I believe they did show, and we'll talk about that when we get into a little bit more of the details of the actual film, which we're going to get into now. So if you want to see this film, if you want to go into it blind, it's on Netflix. Go check it out. Make your own decisions and opinions. Do we want to give our f-stop scale now for the person who might be want to considering take that, or say that towards the end?
Let's do it at the end. I'll be
Maybe I'll
less.
convince you one way or the other. I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's good that we don't agree on
Yeah.
necessarily the quality of the film because I think that'll make for an interesting sort of discussion here as we kind of walk through the different parts and pieces of the film. Regardless of whatever Zach or I think about this,
Mhm.
go watch it, make
Yeah.
your own decision, or don't. You know, you can
I
go,
yeah.
you can live your life never seeing this movie and you'll be
I
fine.
mean, I would also recommend if you're going to go see the film, if you're going to watch it, also read the AP investigation. There's a great Guardian article. I'll try to find some of the links on it. There's many articles kind of refuting a lot of things or questioning their investigation and kind of thing. So I would also recommend not just seeing this film blind, but also reading either before or after some of the kind of just Google search this film and read other things about it because I think that this is such something of such significance. If you're within the photojournalism photography world, I think it's something of such significance that it needs to just be more than just this one guy with a couple of researchers and journalists and making a film for Netflix. So
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get into more of the I'd say details of the film. You know, talking to your point about the focus on what's his name again?
Carl
The
Robinson.
narrator,
Oh, no, it's Gary Knight. Gary Knight, the kind
Gary
of
Knight. So he's the one who we focused on. You know, one of the things I've always learned is in with regard to documentary filmmaking is to find a subject to focus on. And I think for the structure of this documentary, they probably chose, you know, excuse me, Gary probably chose to make him the focus because he didn't have a lot of access to the kind of characters or whatnot that you could follow over the course of a documentary, right? Like the main person who they focus on as being the alleged actual photographer of the Napalm Girl shot knee or whatever. I mean, it's really just an old gentleman who's living in California and they do an interview with him, right? So it's
right.
like you can't really tell his story, so to speak, or the quest of his story with him in it. Because he's just somebody you interview, and they did the
Do they ever
shot.
do it? Do they ever show any of this interview other than 30 seconds of a cell phone video of
Yeah,
him
they
kind of
do.
thing? They show
He
I would
comes
think
to
if
his
we go through the
house.
thing yeah, and then when he goes to the house, it's like 15 seconds. It's him holding that camera
Um,
because they need him holding that Pentax camera, and then it's that afterwards. It's beyond. This is not talking about whether I believe or not the evidence that they eventually show. It's a frustration of the fact that the characters who are significant in this film, Carl Robinson, Nick Ut, who, as far as we can tell, they made one phone call. Nick Ut claims that he's never gotten anything from them.
yeah,
I mean, like this is a big problem. So you're also then questioning in something that
yeah.
like the level of
We'll
like
get into that part because
but
there was.
this is one of my big
Mhm.
problems is that like they spend no time in this. It's just boom, boom, boom. We spend more time him contemplating in a poorly lit room with like just light coming in. I mean, it's shot like a photographer would shoot it, but it's not shot well. Um, and that's like the one of the things that's still frustrating is that like the interviews, I need to have him say more, like build, like he'll have him part of this, like where were you? Show me things or whatever. And obviously it was a unfortunate coincidence that literally the night after the one of the researchers found him, and for some reason they didn't hire a stringer ironically to film this interview. They just had somebody with a
Yeah.
a cell phone camera, um, and a whatever, like a couple still photos. Like that is like maybe I think we have like 30 seconds of him on talking through obviously understandably through a translator,
Right.
and we don't actually have him say anything other than yes, I took the photo. Yes, I took that photo. He's pointing at the photo, and then he has a stroke, which is obviously, you know, horrible. I'm happy that he survived and he seems to be,
Yeah.
working. But I mean, even later in the film, Carl Robinson finally does this. They have this huge buildup. I don't know if we want to wait to get back to this, but has this huge buildup. It's like, I need to apologize to him. And they literally show, I think it's 5 seconds of them together, and then that's it. And it's just like
Well,
this
they
emotional,
show them coming together, they
but
show
it's
him
but there's this
apologizing,
huge
and that's
build
about
up.
it.
There's this huge buildup of this emotional thing where he's continually saying there's supposedly There's letters that, of course, we never see that he's written that Carl Robinson has written his friend. We never see them. We never get to read them. His friend reads one email, bits and pieces of it, which we never get to see the email. He just reads things that have circled, and they have like a bokeh shot that has like one or two lines that they showed. We never see that. I don't know why that's not on screen. Why is that not on screen? You have to build evidence. It's a documentary film. It's if this was a narrative film, I'm fine. They're making an interesting story, and that's all that matters. But this you need to treat it like it's a criminal investigation, because that's essentially what they're. I mean, the level of like criminality that they're accusing Nick Ut and the Associated Press of is within the ethical world of photojournalism is unfucking believable. If somebody stole the credit to my photo of like one of my like photos that I'm known for, I would lose my, I mean, and understand, I'm not a, nay, I understand why he didn't speak out and why he wasn't able to. He didn't have a voice, and that's somewhat told throughout the
Yeah,
story a little bit
I thought
through
that was
other
very well
people.
represented.
But it's such a weird thing that they just don't show the evidence other than this
Well, what
recreation. Yeah.
evidence do you want them to show? They had
Well,
the entire slideshow at the end that showed, and
three
I think
minutes,
in it,
3 minutes.
well, I mean, that's the evidence. I mean, you keep on focusing, you hyper focus on the amount of time people were on screen. This is a Netflix documentary that's
No,
made as an
so
entertainment piece. So
that's then it's
yes,
an
it
entertainment
has
piece, and you
rapid
can't take it
cuts.
serious. Then I'm sorry, it's just like then you can't take. I mean, show
Why
me the
why can't
fucking.
something be entertaining and
No,
also
I would
present
hope. I would
an
hope.
idea? Does that have
I
to be
would hope that.
boring and
I would
also to
hope that
be
I've made.
trusted?
I would hope that I've made previously entertaining documentaries that show evidence on the screen so I can see it, not hear what people are saying that they saw the evidence to be. Where are these? Chris Robinson supposedly sent his friend multiple letters over the year or emails over the years of saying, "Oh my God, I need to do it. Why didn't I?" Then he didn't put it in his book for some fucking reason. And then whatever. And that's never. We never hear Chris Robinson saying, or Carl Robinson, sorry, Carl Robinson saying why he didn't put this in the book. We have his friend doing it for some reason, reading a letter, an email that is printed
Hmm.
out for some reason that we don't ever get to actually see when the date was, what time was, because everything that is important with this is the timeline of things. It's not just obviously there's the moment that the photo was taken, and they do kind of a half-ass like momentary job doing that. That's okay. Okay, we can talk.
Half-assed. Why was it half-assed?
3 minutes on the screen. I need to know what photo, like where are the photos that they used? And like they
Th-
kept saying the index kept
they
saying the
show it in
photos
the
that you provided.
documentary.
No, they don't. They never show the photos.
They don't?
They
They don't
don't. They
show the
show
video
they're on a
footage?
screen and they
They
show
spend
two
the la
clips. They show two clips of the same video over and over again. They can't even, first off, a problem that I have that's so side point, but they didn't
Mhm.
even buy the fucking photos. Did you notice the Getty watermark on
Oh
every
yeah,
single one
there
of
was
the fucking
watermarks all over
photos?
those photos.
So
Yeah, that
low,
was pretty.
so they're
Yeah.
working from low resolution photos that you can download from the Getty website with the watermark over. Okay, I guess Netflix wanted the film, but they didn't want to pay that budget, which
Well,
is
yeah, they
an
stole a
ethical
lot of
problem.
things.
I really wanted to. Yeah, no, I know we'll talk about that later. Which is also always anytime you steal something, I think whatever it's
It does rub you the wrong way. It's
especially when the
like,
film is about a
mhm.
stolen photo.
I
Like,
know, right? Yeah, it's like creating your own controversy. I can't wait for
yeah.
the documentary about that.
Well, I mean, I want to do a documentary about one of Gary Knight's company's photos and download all the. Oh yeah, you can't download because you can't download his foundation or whatever the fuck he has. I'm sorry, like you can't like download the way you can from Getty Photos because they're all behind paywalls and stuff like that. But just download some of his photos with watermarks on it and then do a documentary about it and see how he treats it. But
I know, right? Yeah.
I
You'll
don't know.
hear from my
There's
lawyers.
so many questionable ethical things that like it doesn't again like it doesn't go towards whether or not I believe that the like this is a cut to it so that this is not hanging over the heads. Like I thought that the 3 minutes and then the when they responded to the AP investigation, which I've read when it came out, so I'm not completely fresh in my mind about it, was very compelling. I went from not believing whatever Gary Knight said to basically where the AP is, where the AP's investigation came out, where I'm like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure either. I'm leaning the other way, away from Nick Ut, but I'm also not sure because I don't. Again, one of the problems is that I want to see the fucking evidence. I want to see how they did this. I want to know, to have some idea of what they did. And spending 3 minutes at the end of the film with that, like, the very well done, I know how they did that. I know the type of investigation technique and the
Hmm.
digitization of the photos, and you can kind of build a whole thing.
Yeah.
I understand that and I believe that, but I'm like, I want to see more of that. That's so, first off, it's so fucking interesting. If you're making a documentary about the investigation into how this photo was not his photo, why do you not spend any time, any time at all
Yeah.
with that team, the Index team, who,
Mm.
like, I'm familiar with Index, and
Right.
spend some time in their offices. This is how we put this together. That's interesting.
Hmm.
Having Gary Knight talk with a bunch of his like photo friends and spending time with the what's the old hacks reunion, a bunch of old white people talking about spending their time in Vietnam. It's all that time to basically just any video footage they could pull stock video wise
Hmm.
of like Nick looking suspicious or looking whatever.
Hmm.
I mean, like,
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I
they
think
did
there was.
him a nasty disservice in this. Even if whatever this is, whatever comes out, like, they made him out, and all the while saying, "Oh, we don't want to do him." There was someone threw him a hot rock, and we have to treat him with dignity and respect. And then they just continued to libel him until they got a Netflix deal, and then the film came out after a year. I mean, like, it is wild, like, how they got away with this. And I understand, like, people having, including myself, a lot of rage and like not being even open to this. And it pisses me off because it's like, if this poor guy did have his photo stolen, the way that they went about this, and I get it, was because they wanted to sell this film somewhere. But it wasn't to get a broader audience. They didn't do showings. You can do showings of films and still get a Netflix deal. Like, and they did like two or three showings with special like list only audiences, and they just continued, but they got a lot of talk about it because they knew how, obviously they know the press, they know the people that get films, and obviously every journalist wanted to see this film as well,
Hmm.
including myself.
Right.
But obviously it was, I think maybe they did one showing in DC, they did a bunch of showings in New York and
Hmm.
London, I think. But it was just the way they went about this is shockingly bad. And I just want to see the evidence. Like,
Yeah, so I don't know any of this kind of
yeah,
backstory of the film and distribution and showings. I came into this
yeah,
as I heard about this film. I heard a friend of mine got some of his footage stolen and
yeah.
was used in this film, and he's gonna sue them and whatever's gonna happen there. And then I kind of just saw the film, right? And
Mhm.
so I don't have any sort of baggage I'm bringing into the film.
Yeah,
That's what I'm trying to say.
yeah.
And when I saw it, I was like, "Oh, okay. I get what they're doing." What bothered me about the film was
Hmm.
again this level of artificiality that permeated throughout the entire film. Like
Yeah,
for instance, they're doing this sort of whiteboard scene where they're all talking about the evidence.
yeah,
The fact that like he's going into the house and that they prearranged and mic'd everybody and set up the cameras and it's like, okay, we're gonna redo
yeah,
now. We're gonna have him come in and do the intro. Like, I could see all the sort of seams that went
yeah.
around in terms of like the building of the documentary, which is like distracted me from what I was trying to understand about it. Um, as far as like the building of the story, I mean, I didn't mind the way the story was built, the fact that they're introducing the concept and they're introducing the characters
Hmm.
and they're having them tell their stories in parts and pieces. I think it was probably just as frustrating for the filmmakers that they didn't get the kind of material that they wanted because multiple, interview subjects backed out. AP wouldn't go on the record. Nick, whether the funniest one and the most artificial in terms of my opinion shot was when he was like, "Hey Nick, I'll meet you at this restaurant. I'll be there
Just
for an
show up,
hour."
yeah.
And then it's just
And
him
then
sitting at the
then also
restaurant.
the surveillance camera view, like the idea, like, look at. I would have actually had vast more respect for them if they came at this like, Nick has stolen this poor guy's photo, ruined this guy's life, and like by like not coming clean about he knew he didn't take the photo, and all this shit. And if they had just come at that like we're going after him, we're going to jump him, we're going to do this whatever, but they know that Nick is a beloved person within the photojournalism community because he's one of the nice like I don't think I've been in the same room as him, but I haven't, haven't met him like, but like everybody I know that's ever met him is just such a nice guy and like humble and everything, which is like one of the things that pisses me off is that like one of the they it, there's like a lot of like because so many of the people that they use to really emphasize things in the film um, are as we would say expats who live in Vietnam. And there's this one guy where that says he would where is it? Basically that I know I definitely want to get the thing right. So give me 1 second. He's okay. I guess there it is. The white reporter says, which I can't remember his name. Um, we were local hires. We both had Vietnamese wives. He was talking about Carl Robinson and himself were both local hires because they both had Vietnamese wives, as opposed to the Stringer and the other and Nick Ut. And it was just like one of those like shocking moments where I'm like, they just don't understand. They don't know what they're saying. Like they're so beyond separated where they're trying so desperately to not seem like a bunch of white guys telling this story
Hmm.
and like because again I mean like we can go like to go back to the Gary Knight thing that bothers me where it's just like he has no part in this film like again like I'll talk about my personal experience with Greg Pals. He's always on fucking camera. It is obnoxious how much he's on camera. I will say
Hmm.
that. But he is the investigator. He is the
Yeah.
person who has found out these things. Gary Knight doesn't seem to be doing anything, including like the few phone calls. Like he makes a phone call to the AP. Doesn't have why don't we hear the other side of the phone call of the
He
AP
may have
phone
been in a
call?
state where he couldn't record
He
them.
was in Vietnam, or he was
Oh,
at the time. He
I
was
don't
somewhere in
know.
Asia. It was at least that's coded. I mean, like, and then I don't know. You fake it. You do whatever. There's like a bunch of things you can do, like where you put it on speakerphone. You do whatever, and then he has the meeting with the AP. This big meeting. He's been trying to get into it with AP. Oh, they only did it on background, or we can't talk about it. And it was just like, what was the point of all of that? Other than just to say we told AP about all of our stuff and now they get to deal with it. And it's just like, okay, like at this point in the film too, you haven't shown anything to us at that point. And so
Well,
we don't know
no,
what you
no,
have.
no, that's not true. He showed the evidence from Index and he took the evidence to AP. That was the point of that
Wasn't
scene.
that before the film? I thought that was before
No,
they
no,
showed the
that was
indexing. It's
they did the index thing and then he
yeah.
did the thing with
I mean,
AP and he
if
said,
I was again, if I was AP and all I saw was that 3 minute like video of
well, it
two
may have been
guys
longer
talking
than
about it.
that. We don't know what
Yeah,
else. I
but we
mean,
don't know. This is the problem is that there's so many things that we just don't know about this investigation that like and again, I'm talking about this as the filmmaking. I'm not talking about this like necessarily as the believability or whatever. I think that like again, I think that the AP who has more information than everyone else because they have supposedly they have everything that Gary Knight came up with
yeah.
and they have you know more access historical access potential things but it's just like there's certain things where it's just like I don't understand the investigation where they're like it was going to be really difficult to find the name of this person and then they're showing in stock in the video that they've clearly reshot and put black and white and put like a shitty filter over it
Yeah, yeah.
where it's just like oh the name of the guy like there's names of all the stringers and I'm like no Carl Robinson should know what the name is like did he not care about this string I mean it's just like Carl Robinson's supposed concern throughout this whole thing that his entire life was just, I feel so bad. And it was like, I don't even know who the guy is. Like, that's it. Oh, and it's very convenient that his wife tore up the photo. I mean, like, it's just, there's so many, like, if I'm putting together like a murder mystery or whatever in this scenario, like, it's like, oh, come on. Like, come on, guys. Like, there should be other negatives. There's ways that you can get things. You can get more photos from AFP that you're listing all of these people who are there, and we see these same three clips over and over again, these three other photos. I think that we see like four photos and like those two same video clips over and over again. And that's all
Hmm.
we really see. And they try to make it, there's a whole bunch of photos on the table, but there's not like things that we actually see on screen that we can actually like visualize. And I could be like, okay, I can find this photo somewhere. I can kind of like look into it myself. And
Hmm.
it's just to somebody, it's like, again, I like the way that like I make films, and for BBC or whatever, you have to show these things because you're showing things that people don't won't necessarily believe because you're saying, no, this company that you think is a really great company is really terrible. They're polluting the oceans. Or you're doing
Hmm.
whatever. You're making these vast accusations that, especially under like BBC rules, when I was working for them, like the libel laws in Britain, you have to like my proof, my work for evidence is massive, and you show and tell. You have to show it and you explain it. And I get that that would slow the film down, but there's just so much filler. The first 15 minutes of the film doesn't need to exist. Like I still was just like I watched this entire. It should have been 30 minutes. It could have been a 30-minute
I mean,
film.
honestly, the film could have been the last three
Yeah, no,
minutes
I don't.
showing that
Yeah,
index. I mean, all that's all we really
but
needed.
it's
Everything else is,
so so
storytelling.
but it's so sad because it's like, okay, so did the stringer sell any other photos anywhere else? This is the only photo ever. We never see any of his other work.
Does it matter?
It deeply no,
Why?
but it matters filmmaking because I want to know this character, this guy that I'm supposedly caring about more than I'm
But
caring about Nick Ut, more than I'm caring about anything else.
what does that have to do with the focus of the story,
No,
which
but
is
but this
did
is
Nick take this photo or not?
everything that I keep saying is that like it's not about the thing. I'm talking about the filmmaking, about like showing the investigation, showing me things, keeping me compelled, not with these fake fucking scenes in front of like glass whiteboards that you never actually even see the words. You just see one word a half out of focus, and it's in a dark room, so you can't see anything. And it's just like the entire film is like that's the way I would shoot somebody that I consider suspicious is the way that they're portraying themselves throughout the entire film. And it doesn't make sense to me. But I'm like, I want to know about Nay. I want to know about him. Like he's a compelling character. They have built in the few seconds that we see him on screen,
Hmm.
they build him up as a compelling character. And I do if I want to feel sympathetic for him. And also if he does, like if 5 years from now we do know like somehow it comes out, whatever, AP release, emails release, something happens or whatever, and it's like, oh no, it was Nay's photo. And I'm like, I want to know about him. I want to know like what other things did he photograph? Like what did he, like anything at all. And they, at least in the film, I mean, I would hope that they have more than what they shot. And then I would assume that they do, but I mean, like, and I know he's an elderly man and he's had
Yeah.
problems, but I'm
Yeah.
just like,
Eh.
it's just like if you're showing three minutes of basically total of the guy that supposedly took one of the most important photos in the history of photojournalism, and all that you show on screen in a hour and 45-minute long documentary, I think it was, is 3 minutes of him, maybe total, mostly with him not actually talking and just kind of in the background, used as a visual stunt so that you can have his hands that you can cut back to later holding holding a Pentax camera, not his camera. But it's just like I can't believe that they couldn't find in archives other photos that he's taken. And I'm like, I want to
Hmm.
know what kind of photographer it was. I want to know more about his thing. This is supposedly a film that you're building him up as a character. I know everything, and we kind of know everything there is to know about. We see more about Nick Ut than we do, than we do Nay. And it's just like,
Hmm.
it's like, this is another thing with filmmaking is it like if I have we call them victims, it's bad, it's like the person that got their vote stolen, the person that got whatever, that was their water supply was polluted or whatever. You spend the vast majority of the film with that person. If they're assuming they're a sympathetic person. I mean, sometimes you just get a person who was a victim that's just an asshole. It doesn't
Hmm.
help. It's just like you get out of luck and you spend a little time with him. But I mean, like, you spend a lot of time talking to them and you get that on camera and you build him as a character as much as you can. And it's just like all the main characters that we spend a ton of time with Carl Robinson, who's not a sympathetic character.
I
He's a
mean, they try to build sympathy for
they
him.
try to, but he's not a sympathetic character. I mean, he
I
did not
feel, I
do
feel,
anything.
I
He
mean,
literally waited to the last second to do.
the
He
trend,
published a book.
the trend I saw with him as well as the stringer is
Yeah,
this very much like sense that if I say anything, if I go against
yeah,
the leadership, I'm going to lose my job. Right. And I
yeah.
think that goes a lot towards the type of people that were, running the show. I forget his name, Carl, or the person who actually told Carl to, what was his name? The one who
Um,
said, like, hey, change the credit.
yeah, yeah. Where is it? Horse Fest.
Horse fast.
Yeah,
So, like, I think that's, a pretty powerful, I would say, admonition to like the overall pressure that was put on these folks to like not do anything outside the line.
Mhm.
And it's kind of a sad state of affairs when these folks didn't feel they could even speak up for themselves or speak up for the
I,
right thing.
I
And,
get that, but he published a book and he decided not to come out with it. And like, I'm sorry, like if you have like if you're a first person and you have like some level of evidence in the book, like I don't know this guy. I don't know this guy's book. Like I read a lot. I've read a lot of photojournalist books. I've bought them over the years. I don't know what this guy's book. If he had said did not take the photo, Nick did not take the photo in of Napalm Girl, that's a book that would be. So I just don't understand. Like, why wasn't this a thing? That if you thought it was important enough to, you know, do this in the literally like, I mean, like, obviously this film was shot over, I assume several months, but like
probably years.
talk about the last second, like that you waited until this. Like he's elderly, everyone else is elderly, most of the people are dead. So it's like now that it's not really provable in a way that it would have been 10 years ago, even.
Right.
Um, Now that's when you're going to come out with it. And it's just like, it's just hard. And I get that life, that it was decided that's the last thing that, we're doing. But it was just like, it's just such a wild thing to me that like we don't get seen the contemporaneous like emails or letters or anything like the paper. I need paper. I need emails. I need something to see things like we don't have like Carl's wife like says for, just a couple seconds, there's like, yeah, no, he he came home and he was very angry about it. And then boom, next thing. And it was just like, no, spend a couple seconds for that because that just felt like the most produced, pre-written statement I've ever heard. Like
Hmm.
it sounded like something that was on a teleprompter for her. And it was just like, okay, it's so hard because like I spent 45 minutes of this film at least, or I guess it would have been an hour and 10 minutes of this film actually, where I was just like, I don't believe anything that they're fucking saying. I don't believe
Mm.
anything. I don't believe because of the filmmaking, the way that it's done, because I'm not seeing any actual evidence. They're talking about things that are secondhand. Like I wouldn't be able to go to an editor. I mean, just this guy is a journalist. He runs a obviously a photojournalism agency, but like he
Sure.
runs a news agency, and he doesn't seem to know the basics of fucking journalism. That you show these things and that you don't just say second, third hand, and like the number of things that are like third hand. Well, my second cousin's third uncle. Like I can't keep track of how many uncles and cousins or whatever that are in the film because we barely even give them lower thirds to explain
Hmm.
who they are. Um, like said, well, yeah, no, Nick didn't take the girl to in the car, and then we never proved that. We just kind of let that go. And then
How would you propose they prove that? I
you
mean,
don't have it in the
everything in
film.
this film
You don't
is
have it in the film
basically
then.
interviews.
You don't have it in the film then if you can't prove it. Like
So the film shouldn't exist in that
well,
case
no,
then.
no, but they prove they think that they prove. I'm talking about things that they at least think that they prove. They
Well,
think that they prove that Nick
let's just
yeah.
pause for a second because you keep on saying there's no evidence. Our interview is not evidence.
When they're second or third hand of like
Well,
my cousin said
Carl's
somebody
saying like I was told to change the caption to change the credit. That's not him saying. I mean, I'm not saying it's you can't. I'm not
yeah,
saying it's not the full evidence. I'm
yeah.
just saying like if I tell you something,
Well, almost everything
does
in this
that
film is
not
hearsay. I mean, other than the final evidence when they finally pull the digital thing together and they put all, make that little 3D thing with
right?
index, everything is hearsay in this entire film.
I mean, it's interviews,
No, but it's just hearsay. I mean, there's no emails, there's no other people, there's almost no one that like substantiates who else was in the room when Carl Robinson said this. They have his 3 seconds of his wife saying, like yes, he came home and he was very angry, and then they have
right?
like, and then like the only thing that they do prove later on, or they would claim evidence is that no, his daughter his daughter saw his mom rip up the photo and throw it away. And that's
Right.
why there's no evidence of the print that supposedly um, this, I guess, a complete horrible human being. Horst Fass is his family should sue because the way that they portray him in this film, oh my God, so horrible. He is an asshole and a really shitty person if everything in this film is true. Not only did he take this image away from another photographer and give him $20, which I'm sure was a lot of money at the time, and supposedly also give him a print and then not credit him, which is such a wild. thing that they said, oh
But
yeah,
they
no, we
but
would do
they
that.
explain it in the context of the film, saying that the guidance, according to the
Yeah,
leaked email, whatever, is to not credit the Vietnamese folks because their names were difficult and
goofy.
people in the
Yeah,
West
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
like their names, right? That's
But
they
Nick Ut
made the
is
case
fine.
as to why.
Like
Well,
Nick
Nick
Ut
Ut,
is
I mean
fine. Yeah.
Nick,
Okay. Okay.
it's
Yeah, it is.
I don't know. I mean he's a staffer. Maybe they
Yeah.
wanted to give the credit to the
I mean,
staffer
I think
versus
they
the
credit
stringer,
Stringer all the time on photos. I mean, like that also doesn't really like weigh a lot of weight. Like there's you see photos credits from the time period where it's just Stringer or something like that. Like that's something that's happened for 50 years of photography where it's just like it's a guy, it's a local photographer. We paid him $50 and we don't ever whether
Well,
it be for his safety or whether it be just because we don't care enough because he's not a person who's going to be a photographer tomorrow or whatever. And it's just and so to me that kind of goes as like I believe that he's a photographer. I'm not saying that Nay is not a photographer and that this is all completely made up, but I'm like I don't understand why the film doesn't show. I was going to harp on this again, like why the film doesn't show a single other photo that he's taken. His family doesn't. I mean, I get that he escaped Vietnam. There's a lot of good story, but like also be like, oh well, he had a catalog, he had negatives, he had whatever. He took other prints. Explain it, and that's kind of like I think like if you can't show something, explain why you can't show it. Why don't we have a single other photo that he's ever taken? Nick Ott has a 50-year catalog of photography that's award winning and everything like that. And we have one image that supposedly he's taken that we don't actually get to approving. I want to emphasize I'm talking about the filmmaking. I'm not talking about the provability and stuff like that. I'm talking about you have to show it and explain it. And
right.
like I didn't get that. And so I was just like I don't know why the first 50 minutes first hour of the film exists other than to extend the runtime so it's a documentary and not a news piece that appeared on, DW or something like that in
Right.
Germany.
Not a
You know,
YouTube theory
yeah,
video, right?
yeah, and it's just, I guess, I mean, again, that's like again my overall biggest problem that I'll keep going back to is just like I have so many notes that are basically just me screaming, which is pretty normal,
Yeah.
obviously, but it's just like I don't. They make so
I
many.
think, but I mean, you bring up a lot of great points with regard to the lack of evidence, which I
Yeah,
think is why the film is structured in such the way that it is, right? Because
yeah,
they don't have a lot of things to show you,
mhm.
right, with regard to the hard facts of the evidence. So they're building the story around the interviews that they have and, this guy's quest, right? The story is about the quest for trying to find the truth, right?
But
And
it's
that's again, when you build a documentary, you have to focus it on someone,
yeah.
right? And if you only have the guy who's making the quest, then you build it
I
around
mean,
the guy who's making the quest to find the truth, right? I'm not saying that's
yeah.
like right or wrong or with regard to it's if it's good or bad or done well here. That's just what they chose to do because of what they had to work with,
I
I
mean,
think.
there's a dozen. I watch Frontline, very compelling films. Rick
Hmm.
Rowley's a award-winning filmmaker. He does not have a person in the film for the most part. Occasionally, they'll have like a presenter will dip in, and maybe they'll have a voice of God like narrator.
Hmm.
But like you don't need that. And like again, like then it should have been Carl Robinson then. I don't understand why it's Gary Knight, considering he's not seemingly participating in the documentary or even really like telling people where to go and what to do, which is another thing you can do. You have a newsroom editor like who's like, okay, John, you go get this and you got this. Oh, you got this information. Let me show me this information. Here it is in paper. I printed it out. Like the number of times that for investigations that I've gotten an email and I printed something out for a film are in the thousands because I can show the film on camera. That was before, 20 years ago when like it was difficult to show things on a
Hmm.
laptop or whatever, or
Right.
do visualizations or whatever. And also paper, it proves that it exists, and I think that that's like I just don't understand like why didn't we like all the research we don't see anyone
But I
like
think we don't see that
looking for
because
something that they don't find.
Mhm.
That's like prove to me that you looked for it and then you didn't just go, oh, Carl said that. Well, Carl's been a friend for the last 20 years, so I believe him. And I'm like, I'd be laughed out of a newsroom if I pitched that. Well, so and so tell me. I mean, right now, here's the thing. Right now, I was told by somebody at the Muslim Center that the Norfolk Police Department is dealing with this spray paint, this vandalism on their religious center as a hate crime.
Mm.
And my editors double checked, and the Norfolk Police Department won't confirm. And so the way that we're dealing with it is we're not saying it's a hate crime yet because we have not been able to confirm that it's well. I mean, we're saying that it's a hate crime, but it's not saying that the police have hate crimed it, considered it a hate crime.
Hmm.
And that's how you do it. You have to do that. And a documentary. The great thing about the documentary is you have a year or whatever you've been making this film. We
Hmm.
will have, we're probably I have a story that I'm covering follow up on tomorrow at 10 a.m. And hopefully we'll have it confirmed by then so that we can release the story by the next day. But it's just like in a film that you've been doing for a year and that you have like, oh my God. I mean, I'm sorry, I produced two films and we have a staff of three people and
Hmm.
have more context, more investigation, more proof, more, and proof is in like we look for something and either we didn't find it or we found a different way to prove it
Hmm.
in a different way. Oh, we don't have the actual email that came out. Okay, well, we get three more people to substantiate it or something. You know, I
Right.
mean, that's the way that sort of thing, even undercover or even, background source has to be, I forget what New York Times rule is, like, has to be, sourced by two other people or something like that. You can't
Sure.
say it. We don't have that in this film. We have his wife, which is not it's like his I'm sorry,
Whose wife?
your wife, Carl Robinson.
Okay.
Your wife is not a reputable source. Your wife is never a reputable source. I'm sorry. Because, like it's not something if you have a third person, you would have to have a third person. I
Hmm.
believe I theoretically sure I can believe her. I just need something. I mean, there's just so many accusations that they just let fly the accusation that he put him in again, put him in the that Nick didn't put the girl in the car. That's part of his story that they pull from one specific interview that again never gets sourced, which is super weird as well. They use these interview clips that maybe have some random thing. For some reason, they also have him. I've always heard him speak in English. They have him speaking in Vietnamese, which is interesting, an
Nick?
interesting choice. Nick, yeah,
Oh,
on
they
that
have him
interview.
speak English in
No,
certain
in the
interviews.
interview that they really start fact checking him, especially about his story, where they line it up and they say, well, first he did this, first he did this, first he photographed this woman, then he photographed this person, and then he photographed Napalm Girl. That there was an interview that he's speaking, at least not in English, I would assume is Vietnamese, and that it's a foreign broadcaster. As far as I can tell, they don't cite who it is. They don't contextualize. They don't say when the interview is done, which is
Mm.
really important. And also, like, I'm sorry, like, unless you're really trying to do a hit piece on a person, you pull from multiple interviews, you pull from multiple things and multiple stories, so that because I would bet that if you go through 20 times, Nick has probably told that story 20 times a year. I'm sure he's on a speaking tour about it. I've told my stories about photos I've taken 20 times, and they're every time there's maybe something I remember as I'm telling it that's slightly different, and I go in a different direction on the way that I say something.
Hmm.
And I've even corrected my story because I found video of me taking the photos that I've taken, like at the Unite the Right rally, and I have
Yeah.
had to, oh my God, I thought that was a minute and a half. It was literally only 45 seconds. That changes the time period so much. That changes
Right.
so many things. And I've had to restructure how I tell things as I've learned more information. And it's just like, and so like that's so much part of the thing. And it just shows again, I'm gonna just keep arguing this. It's like it just
Mm.
shows that they didn't really give a shit about the investigation. They cared about the end. They cared about the goal, which was to prove Nick didn't take this photo. And again, that should have been 10 minutes. I mean, maybe the last 10 minutes of the film. And it's like, I just don't get why this film exists more than a news piece other than to, you know, make it. Because also, like, the investigation, as far as I can tell, like, other than the time, like, obviously, like, getting responses from people takes weeks, sometimes months or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that they spent a week of, like, staff time on this. Like it wouldn't
Yeah.
take. I mean, it would take me that long to do this. If I lived in Vietnam and had Vietnamese speakers working for me, it would take me a week to do this with two people. Like, and that's disappointing because I expected something a lot more for a film this big that's been hyped this much, and
Hmm.
like, and I would at least have paper that would show it again. Like I would have
Yeah.
evidence and I would show it in the film.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Well,
So do you believe it? Do you? Wow, I'm sorry. Zoom just suddenly zoomed in on that. There's a weird new
Yeah,
feature.
after Locke, again, taking into account everything you've said with regard to,
Yeah.
the dubiousness of everything that was said, I believe it because of a couple reasons. One, no one gains anything really by revealing this. Like Carl doesn't gain anything. He's not going to become famous. He's an 80-year-old dude. Like, Nihei, or whatever. Yeah, I forget his
Nay,
name.
nay.
Nay doesn't gain anything. He didn't even know this was going on. He was just living his life in California. It's
Yeah.
like, yo, we're doing a documentary about you. He doesn't get anything for coming out and saying this. So no one gains anything, unless they have malicious intent towards Nick Ut for some reason. And even then, like you don't benefit from taking him down. So it seems like it would be a exercise in futility to go through this whole effort to disparage him for no gain whatsoever. So I believe the story in terms of the motivations behind the people who are telling it. And I also think that Index's basically forensic analysis of the material that they had to work with was very sound in nature from the way it was presented in the film. I have, no reason to doubt where people were. And I think it just goes to the point that we as photojournalists, timing is everything, and where we're at and the right place and the right moment makes the most sense in terms of do we get the picture? And I think perhaps if we go down the path that yes, this is true that, this person, Horace or whatever his name is, did tell Carl to put the different, put the incorrect caption and credit on this photo. I can see the motivation behind that
Mhm.
because it is inherent towards helping elevate the AP, right? Maybe he saw the potential magnitude of this photo and knew that this could be another Pulitzer for AP, and it would, again, lend itself towards the credibility of the organization. And Nick probably went along with it because why wouldn't you? It's like you kind of go down this road, you've been credited this amazing photo, and why say anything differently? And he'll never say anything differently that, is going to go against this because it
Yeah.
would destroy his entire legacy as a photographer. It would also detrimentally affect the AP, although I will say it's an isolated incident based on this one person, but who knows? It does open the door towards how many other amazing
I
photographs were shot by stringers
yeah.
who were miscredited, which I think the documentary does raise that question.
Yeah.
And again, I think it does a good job of raising the idea that, did this organization choose to marginalize the stringers of the foreign country that they were in because of perhaps the lack of respect that they had for them as human beings and as people, and just saw them as tools by which to bring them photos, which then
Mhm.
they could elevate themselves.
Yeah.
So, I definitely think that this raises enough questions in my mind with regard to Nick Ut's veracity and credibility with regard to the authority of the photo.
Yeah.
And so I believe it.
I'm like I said, I said it kind of earlier. I'm kind of with AP, where I'm not their investigation, which talks about in the film, where it's just like we are unsure of the what was it we're still credited keeping the credit on Nick as the photo, but was it was unsure of the provenance or something like that, or it's like we're leaving it as unsure or something, where it's just like the I would want to see again, I want to see the evidence more to be certain, and like, larger. And that unfortunately, which is something that this film really does, is kind of put it in the hands of AP to, show. I don't know how. I mean, this is like one thing that like also about, kind of bothers me is I'm like, how many photos did they keep? They said they clipped out the one photo. Did they give it back to him? Because it's like I want to see the full reel. Like something that I've talked about a lot, where it's just like this is why it's important for people to keep their kind of archives and like the full photo reel, where it's just like I want to see what was the photo taken, one frame before, one frame after, and things like that. Where I don't know if the AP would even have that still, or what they're archiving, especially in that kind of scenario.
Mm,
But I mean, the film makes a massive amount of accusations,
mhm.
and I think that like I'd want to see a longer of the index, what photos went into it, what
Mm,
photos, what videos went into it, what whatever, because they kept saying, and the index was really certain to keep saying that is the photos you provided us,
hmm.
and this is what they show. And it was just like in a moment like that where it's just like you can see how many photographers are there, and it should be maybe not really easy, but like moderately easy to figure out who most of the photographers are on the scene, and then kind of go back. I would assume that, once that photo comes out, every agency was AFP, whoever else, every agency was like, oh my God, do we have a photo of this? Do we have something if they can't afford the AP photo, do we have something else? I mean, like I've
Yeah.
seen that with my own photos where it's like I take something and then I see, oh fuck, Scott got a better photo of it, and that's the one that's going to run or whatever. And so, yeah, it's just, yeah, I'm on the fence. I'm leaning much away from Nick, which is not something that I thought I was going to by watching the film, especially again an hour and 15 minutes of the film. I sure as fuck didn't.
Yeah.
And then the index thing, which is I've seen clips of that before, or like little moments of it in trailers where I was like, okay, maybe this is the thing, because that's the kind of only thing that I would believe. Because your answer of like who would benefit from this, Gary Knight. Gary Knight benefits from this, and his agency benefits from this.
Right, but you
Um,
have people like Carl and other
yeah,
people who are putting themselves out there,
yeah.
right, in an interview,
Mhm.
right? They are, and have nothing to gain, in my opinion.
I mean, you can hear there's always going to be things of people who have long made claims that they did this, they did that, they took this, they did whatever, or that they were somewhere, and either you don't listen to them or you don't build an entire film around them. I'm not saying that in this moment you did, but like again, this is
Well,
just
yeah, I
theoretical
mean,
thing. But I'm
you
just
didn't just
saying
get an
it doesn't
email from
mean,
a dude and said like, "Oh, I believe your story outright, and let me make
yeah,
an interview." Like, they tried to do their,
yeah,
we can,
yeah.
I
We're
agree
not.
with
Let's
you
talk
that
about you. Yeah,
their evidence is shoddy at best, but they did try to build like a thing, right? Because do you want to carry water for somebody who's just saying like, "Oh, this thing that has
yeah.
been true forever is actually
I
incorrect"? Like, no, you won't. You got to do due diligence. You got to talk to
this
people,
could just be this could just very much be the fact that the way the film was made, and like Gary Knight is the lead and everything like that, and the fact that I will wholly admit that the fact that like 5 minutes of this film I hated this guy as a character within the film. I don't know anything about Gary Knight really that much other than
I
his
thought you had a
agency or
personal
whatever.
vendetta against
No,
him,
but like
considering how much you
as
dislike
a,
him.
again as a character, like this is the most important thing as a character in the film. It's like they're all characters in the film. Like, do I believe this person? Do I think that he's telling? Do I think that he has weight, that he's doing whatever? And nothing ever proves that he, other than my friend told me this, and that's how the film kind of starts. And it was like, what a weird way to start a film that like again like with all the shit that's come out over the last year again as somebody who's been I think we have different views on that because like you haven't been seeing the long year lead into this film where they've
No.
just spent nothing of their time showing zero evidence and just constantly saying Nick Ott didn't take this photo. We'll show you when the film comes out, but you got to buy the ticket, type of thing.
Yeah.
And that was been the whole thing, where it's just like
Oh,
you got to
okay.
buy the ticket, you got to buy the ticket, and it's like, well, Nick, I'm sure he may, I don't know whether he broke even on the film, but we all know Gary Knight's name in the
Well, they
industry.
sold it
Obviously,
to
we know.
Netflix. They
Yeah,
definitely, made money off
yeah,
this,
yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's something that will definitely, carry along with Nick for the rest of his career in life because,
No,
I don't think he'll go through another interview where somebody doesn't say like, "Hey, this documentary about you, did you actually shoot the
no,
Napalm Girl photo?" And then he'll be like, yeah, I did. Of course I did. Why would I say otherwise?
yeah,
But I don't know. I like the index stuff at the end. Yeah, in my opinion, up until that point, it was all just basically like, you know, again, very sort of surface level, like evidence wise. But, you know, if you take it from at face value with regard to the index stuff, it's like he's physically not in the same location where the photo was taken. Like,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
just what it is. And, again, like I get it. He missed the shot and he wants the fame and, maybe it was something where like it just happened and he didn't say anything and then the fame happened and it's like, well, now I'm kind of too far gone and it's like, you know, what do I get from disparaging my own legacy? Nothing. So I'm not going to say anything. I totally believe that that could have been something that happened
yeah,
and it's not it's not right, it's not fair, and it's, something that should have been addressed, but it's like one of those things where it's like a lie that you live, and it's too late to unlive the lie, and he'll go
Yeah.
to his grave probably with um that, and the AP is stake their claim basically. I want to actually read the AP report because they obviously went through it a little bit in the documentary, but I'm interested, like, does AP present their evidence with
Mhm.
their investigation, or do they just present, a review or summary of the investigation?
Yeah.
Like, in terms of what was their evidence, like what was their track towards investigating their own thing. And again, it's like we talk about this, you probably would attest to it as well. When the police investigate themselves,
Yeah.
right, or when an organization
Yeah.
investigates itself, it's not going to reveal something that makes themselves look bad.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing too. Like, AP is not the best investigator of itself. If AP wants to have a true investigation that's really believed, they should have had
Mhm.
a third party entity come in and do a forensic evidence of their thing, not have an AP self investigation, because they have
Yeah.
obviously
Yeah.
a lot to lose by essentially revealing the fact
Yeah.
that, oh yeah, we
I,
stole somebody else's credit.
I'm
So you're never
hoping.
going to get a ground truth, I think, from the organization doing the investigation
Yeah.
on itself.
It
Or at
would
least
be.
there's always
Yeah.
going to be that presence, or a lack of a believability, because it's the same organization investigating itself.
Yeah. I'm just hoping at the end of the day that if AP won't do right by Nay, that Gary Knight will, and that he'll take some of the proceeds from that they made from this film, or anything else that they're the book that'll probably come out, and the this whatever else that they're
Yeah.
going to come from it, and that they'll give him at least some credit, some financial credit, because like again, this guy, he seems to be living a perfectly fine life based on the house and whatever. Like it's nice, but
I
like,
think
and
he's
he's not.
okay.
But it's just like, no, it's just like, I don't know, it just seems, yeah. um I
Well,
feel
I
I
asked
feel
that
like I got to
question
take
of
a
every
shower after I take this
documentarian that
film.
I interview, or bookmaker who goes to and covers sort of, you know, a sort of lower, not lower class, but like oppressed group, right? Oh, you documented this oppressed group. What have they gained from
Yeah.
your success of creating this content? And,
Yeah.
usually they have like, oh, I donated to a charity and stuff like that. So that's about the extent of it. But yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I agree. Him or his family should get some sort of benefit from this, especially since it's on Netflix,
Yeah.
and Netflix has pretty deep pockets, as we talked
Yeah.
about
I mean,
in our other podcast.
I wouldn't want to make that unlike Gary Knight. I would want to show evidence about how much money they made, because you potentially, like, I believe me, as trying to find a deal with a previous film that had done with vigilantes, trying to place it somewhere, and like literally like just take it. It's like at a
Yeah.
certain point, and so like the idea that, I mean, like, it doesn't necessarily mean that they made 500 grand
No,
from
no,
it
no.
or
I'm
whatever,
not talking
but I'm just
about
saying,
Gary
yeah.
Knight. I'm talking about
Yeah.
Netflix, in general, has
Oh
deep
yeah.
pockets.
I mean,
If
well,
they chose to pay for this, I don't know what they paid for it,
Netflix
how
is kind of
distribution
famous
deal.
for fighting like hell against even copyright infringement, which is something that they will be paying somebody from this film.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
We
I
we
mean,
don't really have time to get
it's
into it,
yeah,
but yeah,
yeah,
they took photos from Photo Brigade,
yeah.
our buddy
Video from it, yeah, video interview
Video, yeah,
from Robert
and
Kaplan, yeah, yeah.
and
He's talked about it on Facebook, and so it's public. So I mean,
right, right. So we'll
yeah,
see, maybe I'll have him on the show in a few years when that copyright
yeah,
dispute gets resolved. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think they definitely deserve to get, called out for taking imagery and stuff. And, actually, I was going to ask you, because you've done this, you've had to deal with copyright
yeah.
stuff. Our guest last week had copyright stuff. So,
Mhm.
I mean, do you know what the road is for
He's
um
gonna, I mean, theoretically, Netflix is weird. Sometimes they settle, sometimes they fight like hell. I don't see a fair use argument in this, because
no.
they literally have the watermark in the corner that goes
Yeah.
away and then comes back, and so like, which is why it was also the studio. Like, I've worked in that studio before.
Yeah.
Like my friend Chris Lee actually was the one that set up the whole thing there. Like, he started the whole, you got to deal with made friends anyway. But it's um yeah, no, they could think. My big thing too is that, like, at least that I would believe that the fair use of stealing all the Getty photos that they did in the photo in the video that they used. I don't know if you watch these. He watches this one clip on his computer screen, and it's clear as day in the computer
Mm-hmm.
screen, and he's watching the clip, and it says
Yep.
Getty Images across the front of it.
Oh
And it
my
was
God.
just like, are you fucking kidding me? They couldn't even be bothered to get the get the license on it, like for like some use so that they could pay for it later, and it's just like it's so easy to do that type of stuff. You don't have to, you can just get a cheap use of it. You can pull it from YouTube, and then we've done this a ton of times. We pull clips from YouTube for the
Mm-hmm.
film, like in if it were showing a video in the film, like on a
Yeah.
laptop or something like that. We'll get that, and then you license it once you get a deal. Like that's the way
Yep.
it works. That's the way you do all the. And I just it's shocking because like again, like I heard this, it feels like whoever made this film, like the Gary Knight, they didn't know how to make a documentary film. Like that's like the thing that shocks me, that this whole thing goes on, and there's just like basic things that you do if you're working in this world, make a documentary film. It feels just like, never mind the narrative of it and the way that they told the film. I have huge problems, obviously, with, I've ranted about for the last hour or 45 minutes or whatever it's been.
Mm-hmm.
But like it's just like things like, why wouldn't you get the photo, like all of those photos that they had printed out on the thing are all photos that exist that you can pull from places if you're showing, because they always did, they the few times they showed things and they reenacted things really poorly, because there's only these really quick cuts and like whatever. But like every time they show like the table, like where there's all these photos from that moment when Napalm Girl was taken, they all have Getty images across them. And so
Yep.
it's just like, you could have pulled these photos from a dozen different places without that Getty images on it. And I just don't understand like basic things. Like, I'm like, why didn't you do that? Why didn't you buy you have money, you're making this film, it's going to get sold, or at least it's going to be useful in some way. Like pay the $200 to get this photo so you can have a high res version of it. I would hope that you sent that high res version to Index, like that they didn't get a low res shitty photo with Getty images written across it with the byline,
Mm-hmm.
which is funny because they had the photo. The one photo that they did have that they I don't know if they paid for, is the Napalm Girl. It didn't say Getty Images or AP Nick Ut underneath it. That's the one
Mm-hmm.
photo they got the copyright on,
Mm-hmm.
or they had the watermark at least. They probably pulled it from somewhere,
Yeah.
because I mean it's just so weird. It's just like the lazy ass filmmaking on so much of this shit. It feels like it was like shot. That's why I actually, like as I said in the beginning, where I'm like, I'm really wondering if like Netflix came back in and said, you got to redo this, you got to do this, you whatever. Like,
Yeah. No.
because I mean that's something they do, and I'm like, it would at least excuse the like weird ass filmmaking that they did in this whole film, and like it's just frustrating because it's like, if you're making this accusation, there's a better film here to be made that at
Yeah.
least inform me about these people, like spend some time and develop out the thing. You don't have to spend anyway, but well, I've already said it. I don't need to go back into it, but yeah.
All right. Well, we know what your film project next is going to be.
Fuck no. I
All
don't
right. All
want
right.
to.
No, absolutely. All right, great. Well, that's been another Around the Lens review. Do you want to rate this on the f-stop scale? Or are you just going to say F32?
Was that higher or lower? I forget what we did. Damn
So
it.
we agreed that if it was more
Lower?
open, it's better
Yeah, better
because
book. Yeah.
typically we want a faster
Yeah,
lens,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So,
Okay.
no,
Yeah. I'll go 22.
22. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go
Uh,
5.6.
okay.
I wasn't as offended by the film as you were. I saw it more on the surface value of what it was, which was
Yeah.
entertainment. And interesting. I thought the ending evidence was compelling to me,
Mhm.
but maybe an 8. I'll go F8. There was a lot of flaws with it.
Well, we could go higher.
Anyways, all right, cool. Well, thanks so much, Zach. This has been an interesting
Yeah.
discussion. We hope you've all enjoyed hearing what we've had to say about this film.
Yeah.
If you'd like to see it, it's on Netflix. It's called The Stringer, and yeah, learn about the whole Nick Ut situation and make up your own mind. Do your own investigation. There you go.
Do your Come on, kids, do your own research.
Make a documentary
That's
about
what
the
Zach always
stringer,
says. Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's like investigate the stringer. That'd be a
Oh my God.
documentary.
Oh dear Lord.